this. Okie dokie, and it is. Oh, I need to give you control, correct?
We can go together. You can start out as long as we both can do it. Should be okay.
Okay. There you go. All right. All right. Thanks everyone for attending today's webinar. We're going to get it kicked off. Appreciate you taking the time out of your afternoon. I know things are getting busy again, which is a good sign, and we're here to help. Today's topic is going to be about the BFT Giuno hydraulic operator. And my name is Scott Fligge, and I'm the National Sales Manager for BFT Americas. And my partner with me today is Pablo Hernandez from Tech Support. You may have spoken to him a time or two. So we'll keep it brief, 20 to 30 minutes, and at the end, we'll open it up for any questions that you might have. And once again, this will be recorded, and this will be posted to our YouTube channel later today. And along with all of the other webinars we've done on a bunch of other products, the cellular, Wi-Fi, cell video, Demos, Custos, all kinds of good stuff. So check it out and subscribe, and you'll get the latest updates there. Oops. Get back into this. Here we go. Okay. A brief overview of who we are. BFT is the fourth largest gate automation manufacturer worldwide, and we are a subsidiary of Somfy Systems, and you can check more out at somfysystems.com, but they are a billion-dollar manufacturer based in France of shades, blinds, curtains, awnings, any motorization products. If you go into a hotel, they probably have something to do with it. So a good company to follow indeed. And BFT is based in Boynton Beach, Florida, and we've been present in the United States since 1990. And here's just a geographical map of where we're located worldwide. And a couple photos of our warehouse in Boynton Beach, Florida, 40,000 plus square foot area, shared with Somfy Systems and our training center as well. Why BFT? We specialize in swing gate automation, anything electromechanical and hydraulic, which we'll be talking about today, as well as underground hydraulics, slide gate motors, which are all rack and pinion, a wide range of barriers, anything from 10 feet to 26 feet. We have you covered, and a good webinar we just did was on the Maxima Ultra 36. I would highly recommend to check that out if you have any projects needing a barrier. And then a full range of bollards, crash-rated bollards, and then cellular systems, video intercoms, and pedestrian speed lanes, which you can also find on our YouTube channel. We have tech support based in Florida, New York, Ireland, and in March of 2020, we recently added to our staff. All right, so a little bit about the Giuno and why should you install the Giuno. First of all, it's a hydraulic swing gate operator for gates up to 17 feet, 1,700 pounds. It's 110 volts in, and then it transforms down to 24 volts, which means you can have battery backup. And one thing a lot of our customers like about this operator is it has adjustable magnetic limits, so there's no positive stops needed. It also has a slowdown on opening and closing, and rated for very intensive use. So whether that might be a commercial property, you know, if the gate's opening 850 times a day plus, or even residential. Manual release is on the operator, and we'll show you that here in a second. And we'll also go over the Wi-Fi gateway option that you can add to this solution as well. And here's just a recent photo install of the Giuno and from one of our customers in North Carolina. A very nice install. And now we'll go over the Giuno.
Hello and welcome to our fourth installment of BFT's virtual train. Today we present to you the Giuno 24-volt hydraulic swing gate operator. This operator is intended for use on gates weighing up to 1,750 pounds and 17 feet in length. It features adjustable magnetic limit switches for both the slow down and the stop. Here we see the operator with the sun cover removed so we can expose the limit switches. This will be your closed limit switch assembly, and this will be your closed stop limit switch, which you would loosen that screw to make an adjustment. And this is your slow down limit switch. Again, you would loosen that screw to make the adjustment. This is the limit switch sensor. So when the stem reaches this limit switch, the sensor activates the slow down, and it'll reduce the speed until reaching the stop limit. Manual release is done via the release key. Since this is a hydraulic gate operator, you would need to open the valve, to perform the manual maneuver. And as you can see, it's a smooth and easy manual maneuver.
Okay, excellent. And from here, Pablo will take the court.
All right, guys, just a quick thing. Just wanted to go over there off of Roberto's video. If you'll notice, there is, on the video itself, you can't necessarily see it greatly, but there's also other valves that you can mess with. Do not touch those unless specifically spoken to, by Roberto or myself saying to mess with the blocking valves. The only valve you should mess with is the one Roberto showed you, that is the manual release. That is strictly and only to release the arm just in case of power outage, and of course to lock it back in. Any other valve should not be touched unless we told you to touch it. And now we'll go over a little bit of the wiring. We recommend to use nothing smaller than 16 gauge cable, okay? Because this is a hydraulic arm. There is a lot of amperage that's going to be going through these cables, even though it's 24 volts. So you want to make sure nothing smaller than 16 gauge cable, or nothing thinner, I should say, than 16 gauge cable. It is a 4-wire hookup. As you can see right here, it'll more or less show you what, where your connections will be. It mimics more or less the operator connections. And of course, it'll tell you where to connect on the motor terminal itself. So, your 1 would be white, your 2 would be, going from the motor powers, you'd have your 1 and 2, which would be red and black. So positive would be red, your motor negative would be black. Then, of course, you're going to have your signal reference, which will be green. And then, of course, your limit switch itself, which is white. Okay. And it's just more or less showing you the color terminals and the color combinations of how it would be hooked up. And, of course, when you close with your little weather valve to keep everything from coming inside there. This is a look at the geometry of where, how your bracket would be connected. And more or less what the distance needs to be from the butt end to the tip of the bracket of the operator. I won't go too in depth with this because we do have an app that we came out with. It's basically called the BFT Easy Set, and we show it to you a little bit further down here. You'll notice that there's different measurements you need to take. They'll tell you to measure from, the center of the hinge, what the gate post is, different verbology that we're showing you here, so you know what you're measuring and what you're looking at when you're using the app. The only thing that I will tell you up here, go in more depth is if you notice the green arrow, that is actually a picture of a push to open type setup, okay? So the app does not help with push to open type setups, but basically all you really need to do is make sure that your bracket is about 7.5 inches in your L that you're making there. So basically, coming from the post to the center of the gate, if you go 7.5 inches, and then you would go another 7.5 inches over to your bracket. And that is more or less how you would hook up. Of course, you can give us a call and we could walk you through that a little better. But if you're doing the traditional standard pull to open setups, you'll notice here, we actually have the BFT Easy Set App. And, you could take a moment now to scan the QR code so you could download the apps and take a look at it. And you'll see there's a link to the YouTube video of how to use the app as well. Because a lot of little measurements here and there, you don't want to get confused. The app does all that for you. You open it up, it tells you it asks you which operator you're using, how much the weight of the gate is, and so forth. Has you take a couple of measurements, and it'll give you that sweet spot of how to operate. Because I can't stress enough how important geometry is, not only just because of the strength of this specific operator. If you have it too close or too tight, you can rip brackets off. And another thing also is, if you don't have the geometry right, you could have not enough room. Like I've had people just kind of throw it on however, and they don't quite make it to 90 degrees, or it doesn't quite close because they ran out of arm. And that honestly is all just because your geometry is off. So definitely take a moment to get this information, especially if you plan on installing any type of BFT swing arms. Of course, this is what I mentioned before. I don't know if you guys can see my arrow on my mouse, but this is the manual release on the top. You'll notice there's like a little plastic latch that you will move, and then of course turn counterclockwise to release the valve and turn clockwise to lock the valve down. If you look on the side here, these are where there's a couple different valves that are blocking valves that we do not want you to touch. Do not touch them. They don't need to be adjusted. They don't need to be tightened more. That is specifically a safe type feature, basically to make the force of your arm a little bit weaker. But again, that is not something that you guys need to be touching. You are only worried about the manual release and of course getting it correctly. Now on the inside here, I don't know if you saw Roberto's video, these are your limits. You have 4 total limits. The limit that's furthest to the tip and the limit that's closest to the motor are your actual stop limits. The 2 limits on the inside that are closest to the sensor, those are your slow down limits. So of course on one side you'll have your slow down, then your stop on open, and on the other side you'll have your slow down limit and your stop on close. You'll always want to keep your slow down limit about 1 inch away from your close limit. So once you adjust your close limit, you would just simply move your slow down limit about 1 inch away, and that would be your sweet spot to get a, not too long of a slow down and just enough to let the motor's momentum come down. Again, this is on the other side. You notice it's the same thing. You have your slow down limit, and then you have your close limit at the very tip, right? And of course, this will change on if it's push to open or pull to open, on which side is your close and which side is your open. But for the most part, you see the B, the one closest to your sensor, is your slow down, and the A, the one closest to the tip, is your stopping limit, regardless if it's your open or close, depending on how you have it set up. All right, here is a look at the control board. That you can get the Thalia-P SE, which basically is just your Thalia-P board. There is no battery backup in this. It's just standard board, main power coming in and your transformer changing the power over to 24 volts. Or you can get your Thalia-P LEB, which is the built-in battery backup as you see in the picture there. That comes in the 12 by 14 box, which looks more or less, 12 by 15 and a half on where your mounting holes are. And that of course is nice because it's always good to have your battery backup, and of course to have a receptacle inside to hook up a drill or any type of testing equipment that you have to do there, just to kind of help the installers out when they're on site. It does come with 2 9-amp hour batteries, which more or less is good, depending on the weight of your gate, more or less is good for about 40 to more openings if your power gets lost. Here's another look on the inside. I believe this is a video walking through a little bit of your programming, and I'll go a little bit more in depth after we get the video started.
For this operator, communication between the motor itself and the control board will be via a 4-wire connection. It'll be 2 wires for the motor power and 2 wires for the encoder and limit switch assembly. This is a 24-volt gate operator, so the control board to be used would be the Thalia-P, which runs all our 24-volt electromechanical and hydraulic swing gate operators, or electromechanical slide gate motors. The control board here is in the 12 by 14 enclosure with the built-in battery backup. Programming is done via the 1 button, the OK button. To start the programming, press the OK button 1 time. Choose your language, in this case, English. Press OK. It'll ask you the type of motor. And
sorry about that, guys.
It's okay. There you go.
For this, motor power and 2 wires for the encoder and limit switch assembly. This is a 24-volt gate operator, so the control board to be used would be the Thalia-P, which runs all our 24-volt electromechanical and hydraulic swing gate operators, or electromechanical slide gate motors. The control board here is in the 12 by 14 enclosure with the built-in battery backup. Programming is done via the one button, the OK button. To start the programming, press the OK button one time. Choose your language, in this case, English. Press OK. It'll ask you the type of motor. In this case, we use the Giuno gate operator. Press OK. Number of motors. In our demonstration, we're running one motor, but you can use two motors in master-slave configuration, or biparty. You can choose two, or in our case, one. Press OK. In our instance here, we're pulling to open, so we choose interior. Press OK. Preset would be automatic residential for closing automatically, or you can choose semi-automatic with no timer. In our case, we'll choose with timer. Press OK. It'll program that setting. Next setting would be for this operator, which is to manually adjust your limit switches. You will.
All right, I just wanted to give you a quick tidbit there before he continues going. This would be your exact moment if you look over the sensor in the middle between your limit switches. That sensor has a little red light, right? So right after you selected your preset, you selected automatic residential or semi-automatic, it'll take you into limit switch programming. And what that is basically the motor will just sit there and you would have to take your manual release key, manually release the motor, right? So you want the motor to swing freely with the gate. And while you're moving the arm in the open position, you'll notice there's a little red light on the limit switch sensor. So on the arm itself, there will be a little red light that turns on every time you go over one of the limit switches, whether it's your slowdown limit or whether it's your stop limit. So it should technically, let's say you have the gate all the way closed. When the gate's closed, you should have the red light on because you should be on your close limit. And of course, this is the time you would take to adjust your limits and move it to find that red light. Okay, so let's say you have it in the closed position, you found your red light, you're good to go. In the process of opening the gate, the light should turn off for a brief moment and turn back on right away because you're passing your slowdown limit. Then it should turn off again, and it should a longer period of time of no light on, and you'll keep opening it, and the light should turn on again because you're getting to your open slowdown limit. Then it should briefly turn off again, and then it should turn on again once you've opened the gate fully and reached your open limit. Once you're able to see those four lights turn on and off, so you're starting with the light on, turns off, turns on for the slowdown, turns off, travels through the gate, turns on again to get to your open slowdown, turns off again briefly, and then turns on again to get to your open close limit. Once you've figured out your limit spots, right, that's when you can tighten it down and put the motor back in the closed position and continue to the auto set. I just wanted to point that out a little better and try to explain it a little better so you can see, because this part is manual. You have to manually set your limit switches and then you could run through your auto set. I'll continue now.
For this, now it'll do the auto set feature.
And if you notice, you have your red lights turning on and the little sensor
it will open and close the gate 2 or 3 times automatically. At this point, your controls, your limits should be set. You can see the sensor illuminate every time it passes by a limit switch, letting you know that it's been activated. We have the OK on the display, so we can go on to the next part of the programming, which is memorizing the controls. Again, when it shows your memorized remotes, it'll ask you for the hidden button. Press and hold the 2 buttons of the remote, release, and then press your desired button. If you have other remotes to continue to program, just repeat the process for each remote. Once you're done, press OK. That'll end the programming sequence.
Right, and basically once you finish the auto set, you finish programming your limit switches in the manual section, then you push OK, it goes to auto set, your gate opens and closes several times, and of course I've seen it open and close up to 3 or 4 times. It'll finish in the closed position and you should get an OK. Once you get an OK, you tap the OK button quickly and you'll see what Roberto showed you there, that it takes you to remote programming. It will stay in remote programming until you finish all your remotes or your QB touches or wireless keypads, things like that. All right. Here is, after you've done your auto set, this is a Deimos board, but this part is actually the same in any of our 24-volt boards, any of our BT boards. So the Thalia, the Meroc, anything like that. So you selected your motor, you did your auto set, you got the OK, and you program your remotes. Your next step would be to turn on your ICE function. And I'll briefly explain what the ICE function is before we run the video. What the ICE function is it makes your motor learn its torque every time it opens. So let's say, today's a nice, beautiful, clear day. Your motor is going to learn its safe torque to run. So it's not running at full speed, or not full speed, excuse me, full power for no reason, where it can hit a car or a kid if your photo beams aren't working correctly. Basically, it makes it run strong enough that it needs to, but again, within a safe limit. Now, let's say it's a bad day and the weather's a little bad. It's going to account for that, or how much strength the board needs to use, and it'll always adjust your torque within a safe limit. Same thing is if over time, over 1, 2, 3 years of this motor being installed, that gate, if it's not getting its proper maintenance, it's going to be harder to open. So this will adjust throughout time to make your torque still safe, but of course strong enough to not give you any intermittent faults that aren't really actually there. And here we'll go ahead with the programming.
Minus, I believe, 8 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Bam, there it is. So it'll take you to ICE. You select ICE. Of course, it's in the off position. You push plus to turn it on. You push OK. It'll say program for a few seconds, and it'll go back to ICE.
All right. So once you turn that on, your next step, let me see if that's in here. Hold on.
Minus, I believe, 8 times. So 1.
All right. So at this point in time, you have, let me just back up real fast to make sure it's not the one I thought it was. It goes to that one. Okay.
Minus, I believe, 8.
The next one. All right. So right here, after you selected, you go into the logic menu, you push OK button twice. OK, OK, the screen will say halt. Then you push OK, OK again, the screen will say parameter. And then once you see parameter, you push minus 1 time and you select logic. Once you select logic, you push OK, and that's when you would find ICE. As you saw in the video, you find ICE, you push OK, you put it to a 1 and you push OK, you'll see PRG on the screen, and then it'll go back to ICE. Then at this next moment, that's where you would continue on.
Actually have to finish activating ICE. So you push plus and minus once, you're in logic. Very important to run the auto set in this part of the menu and not the quick setup, because the quick setup will actually turn off ICE, and because it's a preset. Remember, it's like a preset menu settings when you select the quick setup. So we're here in the main menu. You go down to auto set. Once you see auto set, you push OK. It'll count down and it'll actually run you through another open and close, and this is actually setting your ICE setting. Once it finishes and gets you an OK, it's almost over. It should give you an OK. And then there you go. You got your OK. You push OK once. And if it's not OK, push plus and minus together once. And remember, plus and minus is like your back button or exit button. So you just keep pushing plus and minus together.
All right. So that was a brief overview of how to run your ICE setting. Of course, like I said, the video that you just saw with Roberto running through the setup, that is your quick setup. If you do that quick setup again, any changes you've made in your control board for the most part gets deleted, and it sets a bunch of presets from before. So remember, that quick setup is really something you only do one time, and then anything else you want to do is like tweaking. All right, and here's the look of connecting your power. Of course, you have your receptacle inside the unit, and you'll have 3 wires sticking out the bottom, your line, neutral, and ground. And that is already pre-wired into the board. So you should just have to hook up your main power to the bottom of the receptacle. All right, and here is a look at how you would hook up motor 1. If you saw in our prior slides, we told you where to hook up your wires in the motor. Number 1 being your positive, number 2 being your negative, number 3 being your reference, and then of course number 4 being your actual limit switch. And your color codes would be as such. Your 1 and 2 will go to 10 and 11 respectively. And then of course your 3 and 4 will go to 40 and 42. Now keep in mind, this is for motor 1, all right? So motor 1 is always going to be your 10 and 11. And at the same time, remember, motor 1 is your motor that opens first. All right, so if you're ever in a biparting gate situation that you have some sort of overlap or a maglock, remember to hook your motor 1 up, or that motor that needs to open first, make sure you hook it up to motor 1. Here's a look at your motor 2 connection. Of course, it's pretty similar, but of course now your 1 and 10 goes to 14 and 15. And then your 3 still goes to 40 because that's your signal reference. So you're going to have both of your motors going to 40. And then your limit switch would go to 43. And then of course, again, just to reiterate, this is the motor that would open second. So if you have, like I said, if you have a biparting gate system that has some sort of overlap, motor 2 is the motor you would want to open last or open second. This is just a look at the quick setup, just in case you didn't get a good look at Roberto's video. You know, you have your 3 buttons. The top button is plus, the middle button is minus, and the bottom button is okay. You would quickly touch, just one time, touch the button okay. It'll bring you right to language. You push, and it'll, right after language, it'll start flashing either Italian or English or whatever. Of course, you want to select Italian unless you feel comfortable, English unless you feel comfortable with Italian. You select English, push okay. And then the next thing, of course, would be type. So when you type, the first one that pops up, if you haven't programmed this before, would be Eli, and you would take this moment to push minus to get down to Giuno, or of course any other motor you're trying to look for. But in this instance, we're looking for Giuno. So once you find Giuno, you push OK. Then the next option will be the number of motors. And of course, this is where you would either select 2 or 1. Once you select the number of motors you would like, you would push the OK button. And then after that, it would be direction. Now remember, your motors are always wired exactly the same. You never change the wiring of your motor. All you would do in this instance would change your direction, whether it's push to open or pull to open. So in this, you know, if to pull to open, you would select interior. For push to open, you would select exterior and push OK. Now remember, it's very important to wire your motors the same exact way and just make the changes in your control board. Then of course, it will take you to your preset menu, right? So you went through your quick setup, you selected everything. The next thing would be preset, as you saw in Roberto's video. And there's actually 4 settings there. You have, when you get the preset, you're either able to select AR for automatic residential. And what that does is it turns on your automatic close timer. It turns instant reverse on closing. So if somebody gets in the way, it will reverse itself. And then of course, it takes you to remote programming at the very end. If you select semi-automatic, it does not turn on your close timer. It will be a push to open, push to close type setup. And at the end, it still will take you to your remote programming. Now, if you want to do automatic commercial, you know, if this is more of a commercial type setting, the things that it will turn on would be your automatic close timer. It would turn on your pre-alarm. And what pre-alarm is if you have a light hooked up to your gate to let people know that the gate's about to open, it would start flashing a light. It would go to uninterrupted open cycle, where basically it opens. Even if you go over the photo beam or anything, it'll just keep opening. And then of course, on closing, it'll give you an instant reverse. So let's say the gates open and the timer's open for about 10 seconds, and then it starts to close. Somebody goes over the photo beam before it starts closing, it opens back up. And instead of it waiting those 10 initial seconds, it'll actually just close after 3 seconds and close right away. Because you don't want the gate to just be staying open, because of course this is a commercial place that you want, you know, all your stuff to be closed and private. And of course it takes you to remote programming. And then your other selection would be semi-commercial, semi-automatic commercial. And really the only differences is your close timer is turned off. And of course your instant reverse on closing is not selected. So basically instant reverse is telling me that your close timer is, instead of being 10 seconds, it's actually right away opens and then closes. It doesn't give you any type of time. And then of course at the end, like you saw, it takes you to remote programming. And your last setting that you can select on your presets, and this one is important, is your industrial. Because I've had a couple people say this gate doesn't work. You click the button, it works for a second and stops. You click the button, it works for a second and stops. Why? Because industrial is your dead man switch. It is your hold to run option. Basically, you would have to have a push button wired in to your operator, and you would have to hold that push button down to make the motor run all the way open, and the same thing for all the way closed. So very important. These are your different preset options that you can get while you're doing your quick setup. And of course, when you run your auto set, remember you would push OK once you select your preset, you know, whether it's AR, SR, AC, SC, or industrial. You push OK, you'll get programming. And in this exact instant, it wouldn't just go straight to auto like you see here. It would go to the manual limit switch adjustment. So it would sit there in manual limit switch adjustment until you've moved your gate back and forth and are 100% positive that that is where you want your limit switches. Then you would push OK, and it would take you over to auto set. Once you see auto set, you push OK, you get a 3, 2, 1 countdown, and it'll start moving, and you'll get an OK at the end, or you'll get a KO right off the bat, and it'll give you some sort of error telling you that something's not right. You know, this will also happen too if it's while your auto set's going on, somebody goes in front of your photo beam, or if the gate bumps into something, you know, it'll give you a KO. So, you know, pay attention, make sure that you see an OK and not a KO, because OK means everything passed OK, and KO, of course, means it did not pass OK. And as you saw in Roberto's video, right after the auto set and you get OK, you click OK once, and it takes you to memorize remotes. Right after memorize remote, you'll see the word cycling, memorize remotes, and then bam, it takes you right to hidden button. And again, I remind you, it will stay in hidden button until you have finished programming all your remotes or wireless keypads. Of course, so when you see hidden button, you will squeeze both of the top buttons or the 2 buttons closest to the LED light, because we do sell 4-button and 2-button units. So when it's the 4-button, make sure you push the 2 top buttons at exactly the same time, and you should see release on the screen. Once you see release on the screen, at this moment, you can let go of the remote, and then you would quickly tap the button you would want to use, regardless of which one. It doesn't have to be the top right, top left. You choose whichever button you want. Once you push that button, you should get an OK and a number. In this instance, if it's the first remote you're installing, you should get OK01. Your next remote should be OK02. And of course, and so forth until you get to 63. Once you get to 63, you're able to push OK, or, you know, not to 63. Once you finish with your remote programming, you should push OK. And then you're done. You know, it should, so on the Giuno Thalia specific setup, you should see CC, and it's in the closed position. And that's literally only what that means. You have 2 motors, so you should see CC. If you have 1 motor, you should only see 1 C on the screen. And of course, when the gates are in the fully open position, you should see 00. Or 1-0 if you have 1 motor. We give you also on the control board on the Thalia UL, we give you a bunch of different safeties to use, so you don't have to, you know, have all your safeties hooked up to one spot. This also helps for troubleshooting. All of the safeties are programmable. So if you notice, you know, down here below, it shows you what each one is set to, like preset wise. And then, you know, if you need to change it, you can go into the menu and change either one of these to be anything you want. You can make them all bar and they all work like safety edges, or you can leave them how they are preset and just wire in direct. Like let's say, for instance, you know, you want to hook up a safety edge, your connection would be directly to 70 and 74. If you want to hook up another bar, but you don't want the bars to be together, you can hook up to 76 and 77, and of course change your 77 to be a bar instead of a shadow loop. And of course, these are all your different options that you can use down below. All of our safeties are normally closed, not normally open. So anything that you're using, you would connect your safety and remove the jumper that's in place, because that jumper was mimicking the normally closed of your photo beam. Okay, and again, this is just an option of all your different type of safeties that you can have. You can have, let's say, 000 as regular photo, and what that means, it works on open and closed. This is what most people like right here, 004, which is photo CL, which is the photo beam works only while closing. And of course, bar, what bar is that's your safety edge, any type of safety edges. And one that a lot of people like as well, since this is a swing gate, is your shadow connection. So you could hook up a loop directly to one of your safety terminals that are in there, which I believe the preset is one of your higher numbers. And you would just change that option to a 15. And then you would just hook your loop up direct, normally closed, and that loop will actually be ignored while the gate's opening or closing, as long as nothing's in the way before it starts. Because if something's in the way of that loop before the gate gets activated, of course it sees something there and it's not going to open. But of course, if nothing's there when the gate starts opening, it will ignore that loop while it's opening and rely on your other safeties. Here is a quick example of how to wire up let's say a free exit or some sort of radio receivers. This would be some type of safety device or a keypad. You would get your power for your safety loops or your power for your radio receiver off of 50 and 51. And then of course you would hook up your common and normally open to 60 and 61. All of our inputs are also programmable. They do come with presets. I believe your 60 and 61 is preset to a start, which is actually open and close. It's like a toggle or a push to open, push to close. And your 60 and 62 would be, another input that you can change to close only or open only and things like that. Like, for instance, if you have an exit loop, you don't want an exit loop to work like start. Because if you have an exit loop hooked up to start, okay, the first car goes over the exit loop, the gate starts opening, and then the second car goes over the exit loop, and now it stops the gate. And then the third car goes over the exit loop, and it makes the gate close. So something like your exit loop, you would want to be connected to one of your inputs and make sure that input is set to a 2 to be open only, just as an example. Of course, you have the option on our Thalia-P to hook up a solenoid lock or a mag lock. You could even use a second radio channel output. Like let's say if you have a pedestrian gate next to you and you want to use your BFT middle remote, you want one button to open your BFT gate, but then you want the other middle button to open up the pedestrian gate next to you. You can wire from one of our yellow contacts over to that pedestrian gate system. Same thing as, like I said, we have a mag lock input. Also, it would be, I believe, 28 and 29. It's an extension of this yellow plug that you see there. And the good thing about that is you would not need a relay or any type of power supply. You could just connect your maglock direct to 28 and 29. And then inside of your logic menu, you would just look for lock and make it, either 12 or 24 volt solenoid or 12 or 24 volt maglock. Of course, the same thing here. Your auxes are also for like an auxiliary light. Like if you saw earlier when I explained about the automatic commercial, when it has that pre-alarm is basically to make this light flash before the gate opens or before it's about to move to let people know it's opening. So again, you could use courtesy light, solenoid locks, mag locks, or a second radio output channel to use your second button on your remote. There is an option that we have, a little connection, a little board that you can plug into any of our Ultra boards or any of our U-Link compatible boards. It's the Wi-Fi gateway. And what that is, it's just a little board that you, of course, make sure your power's off. It's a little board that you would plug into the BFT unit, your control board, and it basically gives you the option to work your gate from your phone. So you could actually have multiple BFT equipment in your site. Like let's say you can have a barrier arm, garage door opener, and a gate opener. You can actually control all of your units from the app. And you could also make a scenario. Let's say when you're coming home, instead of pushing 3 different buttons, scroll to Aries Ultra BT open and then go to Deimos Ultra and then open and then go to the other one and open. You could actually create a scenario where you would push the button and open all 3 at the same time. Another function that you can do with iPhone only on this one. This is for Android and iPhone, but this specific function that I'm going to speak of right now in this second is for iPhone only. And that is basically a GPS function. If you notice in the little picture there, you have a little blue dot in the middle. and then you have another lighter blue dot around it, or like a blue circle around it. What that is basically a field that you would go in, and it basically checking your phone's GPS to see where you're at. And once you cross that field, it'll actually open the gate for you, so you don't have to be the one taking your phone out of your pocket or trying to open it. And of course, this field is movable. You can make that circle bigger or smaller, and you can move it around to kind of tweak and adjust where it is you want it to open when you're getting close to your home. Same thing when you're leaving. When you leave this blue circle, it'll actually send a close command to all of your units to make it close. Another thing I want to touch on is how easy it is to add users or even transfer admin. It's simply just sending as you can see in the photo here, you would have, your wife or your kids, or, even if you're the installer and you're doing the install for your customer, it's just as easy. You would make sure that the customer or your wife or kid has the UControl app downloaded, and of course they create their username and password. Once they've created their username and password, then you could send them a simple text message or email with a link that looks just like this, and all they would have to do is touch the link, and they would automatically gain access to the unit or automatically become the admin. Let's say if you're moving and you're transferring it to the new homeowner, or if you're the installer that did the installation and wants to transfer admin over to the homeowner. It's actually very simple, and it's just as simple as sending a text or a WhatsApp. Of course, another good thing here would be when you're putting in the installer data, when you're first doing the installation, it's actually asking for the installer information, phone number, things like that. And what this does is it gives the homeowner the option to just send a quick text or give a call to the person who did the installation. And you could even send them the error log of what's been going on, so they can check, more or less what is going on with the unit, and they can get their installer out there right away, and the installer has an idea of what's going on before he gets there. And I believe the next thing is a video to show you how to do the installation on that. If not, I believe it's on the...
It is, and for the sake of time, we put it on our BFT America's YouTube channel, just this video alone. So for those that want to look at it a little deeper for programming, it's a good tool. It's about 4 minutes or so, but Pablo goes over how to program it to a smartphone. So you can find that just by searching the BFT Wi-Fi gateway on the YouTube channel. And that's just a brief synopsis of that. And thank you all for attending. I hope it was beneficial for everyone. And at this point in time, if there are any questions, feel free and put those in the chat box, and we'd be happy to answer. Is there anything regarding the Giuno that people like or don't like or would like to see more of?